what am I doing with this hand? Ace King with a 9 and a 6. Against a player like this, I really want that suited ace. I guess I'll fold. At this stack depth, maybe I just jam. But anyway, let's get into an introduction. Welcome to ZenMadman's Nutty Pot Limit Omaha Journey, Volume 39. It is now July, and I'm trying some new things, as you can see. I have decided to have the site just stop dealing cards. No? Okay, that's fine. With the 4 and the deuce, I'm going to fold. Anyway, I've decided to try and maximize the sort of visual effect of the table. I've got my camera down over here, right? Sort of covering up some irrelevant part of the table. I'm not showing my actions as I click on them. I don't think they're that important. I will narrate what I'm doing, and I mean, you'll see what I'm doing by my cards disappearing when I fold, or going pale like they have now, or whatever else. I've been playing on this table for 7 hands now, 8 hands, I guess, in order to, pair of jacks, yeah. In order to try and get the setup going. I did win a nice pot with aces, which I'll mark, and actually we can review that in the session review. I was hoping to do more of a rainbow. I'm going to fold this combo, with the 6 being like a 9 or an 8, maybe I'd call it, and with a suit I might call. But I was hoping to do more of a warm-up before my session, but you know, streamer life, right? I ended up, this is garbage, I fold it. I ended up just trying to get this going, and I've gotten it going. It exists. There's some bugs, so I will work on those over time and make them better. If there are particular, I'm going to fold this, not suited to the king. The 4 is just garbage. If there are particular suggestions you have, things about the layout that are kind of tweaking you, for instance, down in the lower right hand corner, this thing where it says like high card ace right now is kind of cut off. I have a way to fix that later, but I didn't get to that yet. I mean, wheel cards aren't great, but this is the best single suited, you know, wheel. Ace 5 4 3. I have a nut suit, and if I flop a deuce, I'm going to have lots of possibilities. So I'm going to call this in position. We'll look this hand up later. I flop the nut flush draw, which is, you know, always a delight. King also is in my range more than in their range. I would like to have a king blocking king. They full pot it. If I think about what my equity is going to be here, I basically am going to need to make my flush. So I have like 2 to 1 on that. However, I mean, there are some other good turn cards, like I guess just like a 3 basically. No, a deuce would give me a lot more equity, and a 7 would give me some equity against like aces and king. I think I can call this. I don't want to jam here because the SPR is over 4 to 1, and I just don't have enough to go with my nut flush draw. This call might be a little questionable, but because I'm in position, I decided to go ahead and do it. They're going to probably pot it, right? Which leaves $5 back. You'd think maybe why don't you just jam? But and do I have the equity? Well, I've got 9 outs, so really 7 straight outs that are not. I mean, I do, right? I will call it off, and I could just jam, but they're gonna call my $5 on the river if I get there. And if I don't, honestly, I'm gonna save $5, and it might seem ridiculous, but like, I'm never good here, right? So I'm actually going to fold for $5 in a $189 pot, which is kind of hilarious and stresses me out. But it just feels like I've got ace high, right? That can't be good. Rainbow, but pretty much the best one gapper that's not ace high. So I guess the second best one gapper. No, maybe ace queen jack is better. I don't know. We will do pre-flop for that previous hand, and we will do review. I think it was a fairly interesting hand. I flopped top pair and not much else to go with it. I do have a lot of outs to top 2 pair. I'm going to bet. I do have a heart blocker. I like having a heart blocker. I think that's important. Now the wrap gets there, right? So I'm just going to check. And I mean, I could keep betting. I don't think 4-5 is as much in my range as it is in their range. And what's really peeling and folding? I mean, I guess there's flush draws, which now got there. You know, I can represent, like, what can I represent? Nothing very convincingly. I think my opponent makes a smallish flush here and checks it fairly often. Even a nut flush probably checks. And they had nines. Okay, that's cool. I'll take it. In the previous hand, I would have had 9 flush outs, but 2 of them paired the board, so they might not be good. 7 outs were to the nuts, then another 7 for straights. So that was 14 outs to the nuts. You're never going to have to fold 14 outs to the nuts on the turn. If you have 14 outs to win, then you can't be getting bad odds. Heads up anyway, right? Multi-way, people can bet raise, and then you're getting worse than 2-1. But heads up, someone can't really offer you worse than 2-1, except that the rake has been taken. So there's that. Here I have like middle 2 pair. I have a flush blocker. I don't see a lot of utility in betting. I mean, I don't even know whether I would be bluffing or like what would I be value betting against? I'd basically just be trying to deny equity to a random king, which I don't think is a huge part of people's ranges. Now I have all the multiples of 3 in terms of pairs. So 2 times every 3 times anything. I don't know. That's just... oh, and you know what? I will mark that other hand where I folded the river for $5 to look up what they had. And if they somehow had less than ace high, I will... I will never make that fold again, but I don't think they do. Let's see. Tempting. The small blind is very... I mean, the big blind is tight. I'm the small blind. I've been very loose so far. Or active. I'm going to overlimp this hand. I don't think it plays great for a raise, but I'll do that. So yeah, some of these things when they pop up maybe are going to look a little weird. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if anything looks particularly weird to you, let me know, and I will take that under advisement and possibly make it look less weird. We'll see. We'll see. For now, I'm going to just kind of try to refine it a little bit each day. You know, I moved my HUD around some. This is going to like pop up out of nowhere, right? When I click on that, lock and save layout. Yeah. So, you know, I could theoretically set it up so that the HUD isn't something you see. I don't know. I think I like, if I'm watching someone stream and they're playing with the HUD, I like to see the HUD. I understand it can be a little... I don't know, not the most visually appealing, and there are ways to maybe make it more visually appealing, which I might work on. Double suited 8s, you know, not anything to write home about with a deuce, right? The deuce is not good. The jack's nice, it connects to the 8s. If you make the deuce a 9, a 10, of course here, the 8-8 jack is doing pretty well. The jack is not a totally useless card, it's blocking top set, so it makes the set of 8s actually more powerful in terms of likelihood of being the best hand. However, if a flush or straight comes, then it's a little less powerful because it's blocking its own outs to make a boat. But if a jack had come on the turn, then instead of 8s full, you'd have jacks full, and that would be the nuts. And it's nice to make the nuts. I'm sad that I didn't make the nuts in my other hand earlier. But, you know, last month I ran so good. Actually, this hand, if I'd gotten it all in, then now I would be running below all-in EV. But because I just called the turn and there was $5 left, I ended up not being below all-in EV, right? I ended up being at... There's no difference in terms of all-in EV compared to regular EV. And for those of you who are like, what's all-in EV? It basically is a calculation of every time that you get all-in, there's a percentage of the pot you're supposed to win, and you don't win that percentage. You either win all of it, none of it, or half if you chop, or some other fraction if there's more people. But all-in EV just calculates how much you should have won, or how much you would expect to win if you have no knowledge of any other cards left in the deck. And then it adjusts. It's actually all-in adjusted EV, right? So it adjusts your winnings or losings to a number that theoretically is more like what you would have won if every time you got all in, you ran even, right? You ran even with the odds. which we don't because we don't play a big enough sample. We don't play infinity hands. Over infinity hands, we should be even with the odds. Well, that's not even totally true. It's really just that the amount that we deviate from our expectation becomes insignificant relative to the overall win rate or the overall results, right? Over a length of time. There's still long-term variance. That's something I think people forget. It's like if you run below expectation 1 month, you're not supposed to run above expectation the next month. You're supposed to run at expectation or certain probabilities of above and below. So it's entirely possible to just run below for months and months and months, and then there's no correction that's supposed to come, right? Over time, it's just that deviation becomes less and less significant as your expected winnings or losses increase over time. And so for me, because I ran good last month, doesn't mean I should expect to run bad this month. It just means that I shouldn't expect to run good, right? I should just expect to play, make the best decisions I can, get my volume in, and reply to chat as soon as I get out of this hand. So this hand looks really nice, right? Queen, Jack, 10, deuce. It is double suited, and if I were heads up, I think it would be a delightful hand to play. However, these queen high suits and jack high suits lose a ton of value when we're multi-way. They gain some value when they absolutely smash the flop with an open-ended straight draw, a backdoor third nut flush draw, a front door third nut flush draw, and middle pair. So I would be putting some chips in on this flop. But again, you can see how, you know, the spades, like they're now. That's not really, it doesn't really matter if I had ace high suits or whatever. Although if I had ace high suit, maybe I'd have ace 10. But if the spade comes in, if the diamonds came in the back door, there's just a lot of potentially second best hands. And multi-way, it's harder to really put the chips in with those things. Let's see what the Ethical Panda has to say in the chat. I really like seeing the HUD, especially the way you have it, just a few numbers instead of the big long line. Yeah, I try to keep it simple and explain it whenever anybody asks, like, what are those stats? Which people don't do that often because I think I have a fairly consistent viewer base. Primarily people who are into Pot Limit Omaha or who have, watched from earlier streams where I have explained. But just since we're talking about it, my stats are very minimal. I'm going to add more in the long run, and I'll add maybe pop-ups especially, but I've got, these are just pre-flop stats. It's just voluntarily put money in the pot, which is the percentage of hands the player has chosen to put money in, which is 88% for this player, right? I will raise this, especially against this player we'll see has only played, they've only voluntarily put money in the pot 11% of their hands. So that could be someone who's very tight, or it could be someone who's kind of tight running very cold, like not getting good hands. I will fold this hand because it is garbage. But the next stat is pre-flop raise percentage. So they've raised 5% of their hands. So basically 1 out of 20 times, 21 times that they'd have the opportunity to raise, have they chosen to take that action. And then the third number is 3-bet percentage. And that's the percentage of times they've chosen to put in a third bet, right? So somebody raises and then they re-raise pre-flop. That's a pre-flop stat. All right. So we've got two players who have chosen to call instead of raise before the flop when they're first in. And that's a good sign in general. They're also both playing over 50% of their hands, which is a very good sign when you're at a full table. If you're heads up, you should play more than 50% of your hands. And then the other ones are, P3-F2. This is like this long, P3, F23, E29114. Like the number just goes on and on and on. It's like a serial number basically, because they have to generate a new one every time someone sits down at the table, right? Because the tables are anonymized. You don't know who's who. You just know that player is that player until they leave. But basically that's their name so that I can make sure, okay, seat 3, player 3, good. All right, and just make sure that's correct. And then the last one's number of hands played. So that tells me the sample size. That tells me kind of how reliable, what kind of conclusions I should draw from the data. Single suited pair of 7s with an ace queen, suited ace, that's going to be playable here. Okay, king, deuce. I have the nut flush draw, and I have kings and 7s. So I have 2 outs to a boat. 9 outs to the nut flush. I think I can bet half pot here and just get them to fold a bunch of like overcards to my sevens. And if they raise, first of all, I think I'm just in very bad shape anyway, and folding isn't going to sacrifice a bunch of equity. Smaller bet size is probably correct on this flop. Paired boards, we generally want to go a little smaller. I could have bet like 240, would have been around third pot. Let's see. Kevin E. Poker says, nice layout. Thank you. Thank you. I did it myself. It's a work in progress. I kind of want to get like a red glow around this, which I did in something, but it's a little, like in a thumbnail, it's a lot easier to do than to put it in OBS. I guess there's transparencies, so I could do something like that. But yeah, I'm just kind of playing around with it. Any specific suggestions, I'm always open to. I know there's like a couple things that are getting cut off kind of in weird ways, like where it says high card king in the lower right hand and you can't see that. I do want to I'll probably put in like some gray thing that covers that up, and then you just won't see it. And I think that'll be an improvement. But I was unable to do that in the 3 minutes I had before stream today. Oh, this queen jack double suited, right? I wanted to pre-flop. I wanna look at the difference between that hand heads up and that hand in a squeeze spot, right? Let's check that out at the end of the session. Panda says, Queen Jack 10 double suited seems a great example of the kind of hand that has a lot of ways to make second best, and you lose a lot of money. Yeah, that's true. That's the sort of hand that can do that, right? It can make a lot of nut straights, so you can win a lot of money, and it can make nut straights with backdoor flush draws or front door flush draws or flush draw and straight draws, where if you're heads up, you can have a ton of equity and get it in good. Whereas multi-way, those flush draws are still going to have value. They're going to add equity, but if you actually have to make the flush, it's a little less likely to be good, and you're more likely to find yourself in tricky spots. Or to be finding yourself getting free rolled, right? All right. I should mention that after my stream, both of the chatters so far, Kevin E. Poker and the Ethical Panda, are streaming right after my stream. My plan is to raid the Ethical Panda because they only stream 2 days a week, and then hopefully they will raid Kevin E. Poker if they get their raiding thing set up. And most days I raid Kevin's channel, as it is actually the same game I think now. But you know, it's PLO, kind of very similar approach, playing 90 days straight. I'm playing some number of days straight. This is day 39 and it's not the last one, but I sort of decided not to set it out as a challenge for myself. In the past, I've done a lot of challenges like that, and some of them have worked really well, but I just came to the conclusion that at this point for me, having it structured as a challenge wasn't the right thing for me. It's totally possible and likely, I think, that it is the right thing for Kevin at this moment, right? I mean, different people are different or are at different points, and if you could get action on a prop bet, then, you know, more power to you. I might do a prop bet at some point, something like, what's it called? Yeah, like 200 hours of you know, streaming 3-tabling PLO100, or maybe 300 hours, or, you know, I'm tempted to do something ridiculous like 400 hours, and so maybe I'll do an explicit challenge like that. Right now, this one is like more of a journey for me, just because that's what I needed at this point right now in my life, right? And it's served me well. It's really helped me put in not the volume for the sake of volume, but the repetitions in terms of prepare, focus and play, review, right? And that process, I should be more diligent about doing that throughout the day for my later sessions, and I will be. But what this has done has just made me do that once every day, and I think it's really just put me in a much better sort of poker brain, you know? And yeah, and I thank everybody for being here, you know, and it's made it so much more fun having people you know, chatting and having people watching, and knowing that I'm not just like speaking out into the ether. Even if it's just one person watching, that's still somebody who's getting something from it, right? So I think it's it's sort of encouraging, and it can be helpful, and helpful in terms of accountability as well. Just, I mean, I'm holding myself accountable, but also knowing that there's somebody who's like, oh, I was going to watch this at 10 a.m. Like, now I'm not. No, okay. And it's like, this sort of not wanting to let anybody down. It can be very constructive, right? And powerful. It can be destructive if we let it be in the wrong, if we let it sort of run us in a certain way where we find, okay, actually what I'm doing right now isn't healthy for me. I need to make a change. Then it can be problematic, I think. Ace King 6-4. I have a suited ace. That's nice. The 6-4 is not great. I think this is really close, though. And I think this is a raise. And Ace King 6-3 is a fold. And I'm pretty sure if I was suited to the king and not the ace, this is a fold. So we're going to go with it, and we'll see what happens. We've got some more chat. What do we have? Kevin says, YouTube is the place for learning about stream graphics and cool concepts. Yeah, I mean, I watched like Alpha Gaming there. I watched some other stuff there. I think this 4 dangler is just a little too dangly. In later position, I think it probably playable. Pre-flop, we'll review the last one. Yeah, if you have any other channel recommendations, I watch Alpha Gaming, and then I just watch some other random stuff, or like, you just like go to YouTube and just search for like, this is what I'm trying to solve, and then you get a video, and it's like, here's how you do the thing. You're like, okay, now I'm gonna do the thing. So that's been helpful. Ethical Panda says I need to look into that. Yeah, do it. Let's go Panda. Kevin says, absolutely. Yes, just need to learn how to raid. I will. I'll help. I'll be in the chat, and I'll try to help with that. I've not that I'm an expert at it. Recently, I've tried to raid, and it's I don't know. It gives me an error message sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. But sometimes it's because like I already raided, and then everybody's already gone, and then I'm like, wait, did it raid? Did it raid? So I don't know. I mean, my impression is that some of these softwares don't work like perfectly all the time. But, I don't know. Everything's fallible. So, let's see. Kevin says, it's right for me because I'm flaky as hell and would have quit unless I put money on the line. Yeah, I mean, money can be a powerful motivator, right? And if you know that's what's right for you, that's great. And I think at some point in the future, that might be what's right for me. I just know that where I was in terms, like I had a little rough stretch in terms of poker. And a lot of it was, some of it was running bad, right? And running bad can kind of start things like this, but I don't think it's usually everything. So this is not good. So I fold. But then it can often just be like poker wasn't in the right place in terms of my priorities. And if it's not, I think it can be a really hard game to play. And so feeling like it was just an obligation to play, as opposed to like, I needed to find the joy in playing, right? And the joy in playing for me is thinking about the game, learning about the game, and trying to understand why I should do what, and that journey of improvement. So I just really needed to double down on that, more than like doubling down on the grind and getting hands in, right? But, I mean, I know, Kevin, I know you did months of study before your challenge, right? And that makes all the sense. And I'm kind of in my months of study now. And then maybe I'll do a challenge in a little while when I work my way through, like from the ground up, right? And when I feel like I've squeezed the juice out of the pre-flop matrix and really feel super confident in that regard, I think that's when I'll do more of a challenge. And we'll talk about some profits maybe. Let's see. All right, so Kevin says, raid is pretty easy. I use my browser to go to Twitch channel where there's a raid option. Yeah, it's in that area where we were looking yesterday where there's like the edit stream info. And then you can see the chat and everything. The raid overrides the delay, so you have to time it so that you end the stream when you want. Yeah, that's a difficulty for me. I think Panda streams without delay because it's more of like chat focused. Let's focus on this. Well, this is easy. So if anybody wants to stream snipe PLO10, don't do it. It's not a nice thing to do. But fortunately, I don't think there's a whole lot of stream snipers in PLO10 on Ignition. This hand's quite nice, right? I've got kings with a suit with 2 connected cards against this loose passive player. It's just a delightful hand to play. There's going to be tons of good flops. I was going to say if the flop comes ace high, then I would have a range advantage, but I'm not sure how often I'd be betting. Here, I'm going to bet against a player like this. This is a very dry board, so let's bet third pot. And they just fold. Like, there's just not a lot of stuff they're going to have. It's mostly going to be these little wraps, I guess. Like, sure, queen four, queen deuce, they can play, and a player like that could. I'm blocking top anything. And with the deuce, I think this is a fold. And the tri-suit, just, even if it's close, then folding can't be that bad. Then Kevin says, I check in here to support you just like you come to my channel to support me. Yeah, it works great, right? I mean, it's like that kind of... I've been really pleased with the sense of community and kind of finding community, which all of the really successful times in my poker life, I've had some element of community, right? There've been people that I talked about hands with, or people who like I would drive to Foxwoods or Atlantic City with from the Mayfair late at night. You know, who I wasn't necessarily talking strategy with because their favorite hand might have been like 8 deuce, which they called Turkish Airlines. And they were Turkish, so I guess they get to make that joke about their airline crashing and burning, but I don't know. It seems in poor taste. But they were quite a character. They'll be in my upcoming book, Poker Ain't So Sexy. The anagram is PASS. Or that's not an anagram, that's an acronym. So I can make all sorts of like jokes about, oh, do you want to read this one? Pass. I don't know. If I actually end up writing it, which I think I will. Kevin says, Sam Woodhall, who is streaming now, is a pro graphics designer and streamer. His work is top-notch, and let's raise this. And his Discord is full of free awesome content. Awesome. I will check that out after the stream. After this stream, and then the Ethical Panda stream, then Kevin E. Poker stream, then I'll check it out. Although maybe I'll you know, bounce around a little. Okay, this board... I think out of position, I check it. It is like quite dry for a raising range, right? Like these 5, 6, 7 type hands aren't going to be in there all that much. They're going to be there some. I'm just going to check fold. I have an overpair. That's the smallest overpair. I have 1 spade blocker. I have no further board interaction. I guess I have a runner straight to a queen high straight. So not a whole lot of goodness there that can... Not a lot of good can come out of that. Oh, hey, I won. That hand was actually decent, right? I had queen 7, 6, 5. So I had a 3-card rundown, queen high flush. I was in position potentially against a small blind opener. I believe I would have played that in that spot. I could mark it, and then I'll look back and be like, why did I mark this? Okay. All right, kings. Suited to a king. This is the new player, eh? Yeah, this is a new player. With a queen, it's nice to have the queen. I think the 7 makes this a fold, and this is one of those hands that in the past I might have 3-bet or I might have flatted, and I'm pretty sure this is a fold. I'm gonna check it out. We're gonna throw it on the pile. As always, if there's any hand that I don't talk about as much as you'd like, or if you'd like to talk about it further during the session review, just say, hey, that hand. But don't say that hand, say the whole cards, and that'll be more helpful. And if you're on YouTube, just give a timestamp, and it'll be a lot easier for me to look it up and get back to you. Yeah. The Ethical Panda says, our friend who liked K8 because they were dating Kate. Kate. That was like the first like big bluff I ever did was with King 8. It was like a heads up. I was playing heads up no limit hold'em till like 10 in the morning, when a third friend whose house it was woke up and came back and sat in the game for a little while, busted another buy-in, then went off to work. Morphine was playing, and they had that song I Had Your Chance came up, and I was like, I'm just gonna bluff them just this one time. And they probably folded like queen high or something, I don't know. But yeah, that'll be in the book. Queen 9, 6. I have a queen suit. I was gonna raise this hand for a couple of factors. It might be good enough. I'm not confident in that. I think it's close-ish, but the button is fairly tight so far, and the big blind is fairly loose and passive, and I think this is a hand that would play pretty decently against a loose and passive big blind in a heads-up spot, which would be a fair percentage of the time that would have been the result. However, the player on my right raised, and I don't think this is a cold calling hand. In general, hands that are close to RFI, like hands that are close to whether or not we want to raise them first in, are often going to be folds when somebody else raises, right? They did make it $2, so like I don't know, maybe I can play that there. I don't know. Feels like a natural water break time. I'm very thirsty for water. Sitting in front of a computer for many hours a day, I think, is a very dehydrating activity, and it is important to maintain one's hydration. I just have this like 40 of water, and I try to drink 2 or 3 a day. For a while, I was doing like 3 every day, but then I kind of eased back on that, and I think I should get back towards that much hydration. It's good for you. What the heck happened there? Eights with a jack and an ace, rainbow. Not a very good hand. I think easy to overvalue. I'm kind of curious what the previous hand was. We'll bring it over here and maybe take a look at it if this hand gets boring. Oh. It wasn't that interesting. There was a river bluff and a call. So this player actually bluffed river that one time. This is this is not the sort of note I would take long term, like if I was going to keep the note for a long time, but it's basically a note that this person is capable of making a river bluff, called river bluff with one pair. Okay, so basically we just know this player is capable of bluffing at the top, and on my left they're capable of a, you know, not really a hero call, but like kind of like I think it was a pretty optimistic sort of call, you know. So let's see what we got. All right, call, and then a raise from the big blind. This board, I mean, this would be a great board for a big blind if they hadn't raised. Once they raise, they take a lot of, you know, 6-4 out of their range. They're going to have as much ace-4 as anybody else. It's hard to know what somebody who just calls pre-flop is going to have in their range. We can really only kind of like estimate. It's difficult to get too granular, right? So we have pot here on the, we had half pot on the flop, right? Half pot in a call, and then pot on the turn. What are they repping there? I mean, it feels like, I mean, they can have ace-4, right? Aces with the 4 is pretty easy for them to have. They can have some nut flush draws. They could have 2 nut flush draws with an ace and maybe like a 6, and now they've got blockers, right? Like ace, 6, 6, double double suited, like, you know, clubs and spades would be a pretty nice hand there. You could probably get some 2-pair hands to fold, maybe some sets to fold, on the river at least. And we'll fold this. Hydration overall, the ethical panda says. Auf Deutsch. All right. Ace, queen, jack with a suited ace. This is a sort of hand that fits the sort of 3-betting bill very well. Now, would I always 3-bet it? No. I think with the suited ace, we actually want to flat more often than we would were we suited to, like, the queen, right? This player did the min raise, though, so I'm like, all right, that barely even qualifies as a raise. This board, I think, is much better for their range. They're going to have a lot of king that raises and calls the raise. I'm going to have a lot of ace. Unfortunately, I don't have either. I just have queen. So let's check it back. Let's catch, like, a 10 of hearts on the turn. Same thing. Now I'm still not beating a king. King is still huge, and just, you know, what do I want? Like, I have queens, there's a king on board, there's a straight on board, there's clubs, there's just like, I want the queen of diamonds on the turn, and then I want them to not have a straight, is what, or on the river rather. The turn would have been nice. I would have taken a queen of diamonds on the turn. Even a queen of clubs on the turn would have been fine. Double suited tens. I'm going to call a raise in position with this hand, blind versus blind. We'll probably wrap up the session soonish and then get to the session review. Let me check how many hands. We've got 6 hands. Only 2 of them are like real reviews. The other 4 are basically just pre-flop lookups. So, so this is a good example, I think, of a hand that's a little trashy, right? I mean, Queen Jack, yeah, okay, 8 and 5, but like, you know, double suited. And where my suits are just so much better than they would be were this, and whether I'm supposed to generally bet on flops like this, I'm not super sure. I think a check raise might be interesting. I have a wrap and I have 2 backdoor flush draws, and a jack high flush or queen high flush are much more powerful in a heads up kind of pot. So this card is just great for my range, so I'm going to barrel. That's the main thinking there. I still have my wrap, right? There's a flush draw on board. I'm not crazy about that. The only flush that became possible was the only one that wasn't my backdoor. Queen 6, 4, 3. I'm going to fold. I don't think it's worth a play here. But yeah, so like the turn card looks like, well, it's not great for my hand, but I've got all the ace-ace there. They don't have the ace-ace. I mean, I check some of my ace-ace on the flop. But when I bet the flop half pot and they call, and then the turn's an ace, it's like, I just get to win that pot pretty often, right? And if they have an ace or ace-10 or ace-9 or something, they probably just call, and then I bink on the river. That was the real plan. The real plan was to have them call and then to river the nuts. It's important to, you know, I mean, truthfully, it is important to actually think about the various eventualities, right? Like, when you're thinking of firing a turn bluff, consider how much money is left back and what rivers are you maybe going to fire, right? If I had a club blocker there, if I had like the king of clubs in that, if I had like king, queen, jack with 1 club, then I'm thinking probably like, yeah, I'm going to bet this turn and I'm just going to slam this river if the clubs come in because I'll have the nut blocker. With my actual hand, what was I going to do? I don't know. I was going to river the nuts, right? I said that. That was my plan. And if I whiffed, I was probably at that point going to check a lot of rivers. I didn't have the best one for bluffing because I was not blocking any of the pair, 2 pair type combos. I was blocking tons of straight draw combos. I was unblocking clubs. If a club came in, I'm unblocking clubs. If the club whiffs, then I'm unblocking club draws. So maybe it's better if the club whiffs to bluff. Whereas if I had a club in my hand, I can bluff more when the club comes in. Okay, we got that figured out. Always feel free to let me know your thoughts on any particular hand. I'm streaming, I think, with like a 2-minute delay today because I was messing around with this layout. Again, we have this new, not super shiny layout, but it's a little different. Hopefully this, you know, makes the action bigger, right? You can see the cards bigger, like if you're on, say, a cell phone. I know some people watch streams on cell phones, and if they're really small, like this one, like it can be really hard to see anything. So, I try to have good enough video quality that you still should be able to see, but I think hopefully this layout will make, as far as 1 tabling, right? I'm going to do some 3 tabling, and it might be a little harder to see. I see a lot of streamers actually have like 1 table pop up and take up the full thing when they're like 4 tabling. I think that's cool. I don't know how to do that, so maybe I'll figure that out. The Ethical Panda asks, can you define bink? No, it's undefinable. It is, yeah, it means to get there in a spectacular yet potentially unlikely fashion. It doesn't have to be unlikely, but usually, like, you know, something that's less than 50%. Like if you have I'll just fold this hand. If you have like 1,000,000 chips and your opponent has 1,000 and you win the tournament, like, you know, from the beginning you would say, oh, I binked a tournament, but at the end it's like, you know, you, whatever the cards are, it's, you know, usually it's like, you know, you hit a 2 out or you hit a 4 out or something like that, but it can refer to anything and is a very open-ended expression. All right, with ace queen suited, I think I can raise this. The 3 and the 8 aren't great, and I think this is, since it's at the bottom of my raising range and it's single suited and I'm tri-suit, I think this is a sort of hand that I can go ahead and fold to a 3-bet, and then mark and look up and go, hey, what's up with that hand? All right, nines with a king 10, double suited. Looks really good. Not a great 3-betting hand, as I don't have an ace, and I've got some suits that can certainly be dominated. Looking behind me, this one player has 3-bet 50%, but that's only 1 out of 2 hands. The other player 6%, that's only 1 out of 17 hands. I think I'm going to flat this. I think we get to flat a decent number of hands on the button, and this looks like a fairly good one to do so with. You know, I've got a lot of straight possibilities, a lot of flops that are going to be good. This is basically all the things that aren't good in a flop. They check this ace-high flop, which to me feels like A, they have kings, B, they have queens, C, they have like ace-8 or ace-ace or like something, maybe even a weak ace. I'm not just going to like randomly stab at this board when this player checks here one time. It feels like actually a reasonable spot to do some check raising, and I think we can just fold this. And it's been a little bit of a up and down session. Mostly just like we went up and then we went back down. Not a huge result, really. But, all right, they min raise. I was considering raising this hand. I'm just going to fold, though, against this kind of goofy, like, post $1, raise $1 line, which, like, definitely warrants, like, a suspicious look. But I don't quite have the cards that I really want to get in there and mix it up. Wow, so this player has, well, now they've 3-bet 2 out of 2, but we'll keep an eye on them. I have sat out next blind, so we're going to get dealt in 2 more hands and then proceed to the session review. 10 deuce deuce. It's a decent flop for the 3-better, right? Because a raise caller shouldn't have a lot of deuce X. 10-10 is a possibility, but that's like one hand among many. Ace-ace is pretty strong on this board, particularly if there's any sort of club action going with it, whether it's the ace of clubs or the ace of clubs plus another club. 9 of hearts, the board got a lot more dynamic, except 10-10's locking everything out, 9-9's locking out all the straight and flush draws. So it's hard to draw to straight and flush draws here. This is a spot where I really do like to bet hands like aces or kings and get folds, because people can give up a lot of equity because they're drawing to very non-nutty hands. But those hands can be very live against some hands that you might have. So I think locking up that equity in spots like that is of considerable value. All right, so when I open up the session replayer, it's probably gonna break everything, and I'll go back to the previous layout, and we'll sort of see what happens. First, I'll open it in this, and then we'll be like, oh no, and then we'll go back to the other one. That's my plan. That's the plan. Let me get that queued up. All right. And we will just fold this next hand, unless it's decent looking, but that's like a button hand. That's not a hand that we play in this spot. All right, let's proceed to the session review. Ace Ace 7-4, ace of diamonds, or suited to the diamonds, right? A raise, a call, in a squeeze spot. I don't think I'm ever flatting any ace ace here, so I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze and get 2 calls and a really nice low SPR spot with a really nice hand, right? I've got aces and deuces, which beats everything but 9-9 or anything with a deuce. And I also have nut diamonds, so I've got very robust equity to go with my immediate equity, right? My immediate equity is I have the best hand very often. My robust equity is if I let them get free cards, they're not going to beat me that often, because if it's a diamond, I'm going to have better diamonds. The first player checks to me, and let's talk about SPR for a moment. My stack to pot ratio with this person on the button, they have me covered. So out of position SPR is a little over 2-1, right? 84 would be double 42, so just a little over 2-1, 2.25 to 1 or so. With the other person, it's more like 1-4, right? So they only have a quarter as much money as there is in the pot. So when they check, what I decide to do is basically make a bet that number 1 would put them all in if they want to call, and number 2 look possibly a little weak to the in position player, get them to call with like kings, queens, jacks. I can get value from those hands. They don't have that much equity against me, right? Even a double overpair hand doesn't have that much equity. It's basically like a gut shot. I go ahead and bet third pot. There was 39 in after rake, or something like that. They'd taken rake, right? This player calls, and then the other player folds. Okay, so that's fine. What's the next card? The next card's an 8 of clubs. Okay, so now there's 2 flush draws on board. I have one of the flush draws, and I block the other nut flush draw. So those are both good. If another club comes on the river, theoretically I could turn my hand into a bluff, but like, what would I be bluffing? Like a deuce? I'm probably not going to utilize that as like a blocker for a bluff. But it still means that my opponent can't call me with the nut clubs and potentially get there. Still, I have the nut diamonds. So again, I still have this robust equity, and I think they have a lot of king, king, queen, queen type hands at this point still. So I decided to just bet third pot, and this is going to set up a very comfortable river jam. So I'm kind of trying to piece it off, right? Sometimes we want to play 3-bet pots as a 2-street game, which I could have. I could have potted, or like, I think I could half pot flop and then jam turn. Or we can break it up and make it a 3-street game. Here I decided to make it a 3-street game because my hand had so much robust equity, right? I'm not worried about them making 2-pair because I already have the best 2-pair, aces and deuces. I'm not worried about them making the flush because I have the nut flush draw. I think this is among the best hands to use with this smaller bet size because I have such robust equity. And if I'm behind, like I'm behind, they have a deuce or 9-9, and what are you going to do? But the river's a 3 of spades, which is just a beautiful card in terms of not losing the hand. You know, there might be something to be said for like checking and letting them bluff, but I think king, king, and queen, queen type hands, especially king, king, are still going to be a lot of their range. So I jam, and they fold. Maybe they just had some diamond draw. Maybe they had like queen, jack, 10 with diamonds, something like that. I don't know. Or maybe they had kings and we're just like, all right, enough of this. I know you're just trying to take all my money with your stupid aces. So anyway, that's that hand. And we will proceed to the next one, which is the previous one, which is actually the next one. It's funny how it replays them in like reverse order. Okay, here I open ace 5, 4, 3, single suited, but suited to the ace, so good suit. I'm going to look this up in Upswing Poker's pre-flop matrix, the PLO matrix, which if you're on YouTube, there's a link in the video description below. So what is this? I'm the cutoff. I want to look at this. I think this is on the looser side, and it's fine though. This is the only ace and then 3-wheel card. So single suited is RFI from cutoff, only good suit. We'll say RFI / call from cutoff. Only good suit is played. Ace 5, 4 deuce and ace 4, 3 deuce are folds. Okay, so there I know this was correct pre-flop, and I'm using the micro stakes thing so that it's adjusting, you know, it understands, yeah, the rake's pretty bad. So, you know, we don't want to necessarily, there's some hands that we might play at higher stakes or in MTTs with lower rake that we're not going to play in these spots. But when we're raising, it's actually not as big of an effect. Any aggressive action. Okay, so they 3-bet me. I've already looked it up. A call is correct. A lot of the time when we have a suited ace and anything else going with it, we're going to call these 3-bets, especially in position, right? Our hand's going to play very well. So now, here on the flop, they bet close to pot. And actually, if they bet pot, then they could have full potted the turn. So, you know, they didn't do that. Whatever. I have the nut flush draw, and they're going to have some overpair aces. They're going to have some sets of kings. Maybe they're going to have like a king with clubs. Them having a king with clubs is actually fairly bad for me because that's taking away my outs, right? But I've got 8 outs to the nuts, and I'm getting 2 to 1, and I think there's a reasonable chance I'll win stacks if I call this. I feel like folding the nut flush draw in position on the flop with money left to win seems probably incorrect. I'm fairly certain a solver is going to call this, maybe even jam, but probably not jam, probably just call. I'd be curious to see that to sort of verify whether against a pot size bet we do want to be calling with all of our nut flushes, but our nut flush draws. No nut flushes available yet. But I also wanted to take a moment to consider what turn cards am I going to be able to continue? Because if the turn is just like a queen of hearts and they jam, I'm not going to have odds to continue. First of all, I also thought that against this pot size bet, I'm not going to have much fold equity on the flop, and as a result, I don't see any merit in raising. The thing here is what turn cards are going to be good? Well, a deuce is going to make a 3, 4, or 5 an out. A 3 is going to make a 2 or a 7 give me straights. Even a 7 where it's like, well, yeah, but then they could already have 8-10. Sure, but I have the nut flush draw, and if we're getting all in on the turn, I'm not going to have to worry about playability, where then an 8, wait, if they have 7-6, then any 3-4-5 or 8 would all make me a straight, right? So there were a fair number of turn cards that I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to call again. And guess what? The turn was one of those cards. It was a deuce, which we want to, like, you know, estimate our outs here, right? And I have 9 outs to the flush, but 2 of those pair the board. So let's say when they bet here, they have a set of kings. There's 7 clubs that do not pair the board. So those are the nuts. I know they're good. And then there are 9 cards, 3, 4, and 5. 2 of those cards are the 4 of clubs and 5 of clubs. So I already counted those, so I can't count those. So 9 minus 2 is 7. So we have 7 flush outs and 7 straight outs. That's 14 outs. 7 not flush outs, right, that don't pair the board. So that's 14 outs that we 100% know with absolute certainty are good. We generally get 2.5% per out. So 14 outs is going to be 35%, right? 35%, we can't be getting worse odds than 33%, right? We only ever need 33%. Here we see 2 to 1, 33%. So 14 outs, 100% slam dunk, we can call. Now, they only have $5 left. Why wouldn't I just put it in? Well, I don't think ace high is good. And if I bink on the river, which whether or not you want to call it binking because I've got 14 outs, whatever, that's your choice. And a king or a deuce might, if a king or a deuce of clubs came, I would call it off for the $5 and maybe they would have a boat. But if I whiff, like, I don't think my ace 5 is like ever good. I mean, I guess they could have a hand like queen jack 10 8 or like jack 10 8 7 with clubs, and then maybe I should have just gotten it in on the turn. Yeah, all of a sudden I hate this just because of the super tiny let's do some pot odds, right? So they're betting a very small fraction of the pot, so I only need to be good about 2% of the time. So is 1 out of every 50 times that they or 40 times or whatever that they bet here, is that going to be like queen high, jack high? Oh, even then, all the straights, like the 10 even like makes all the straights a straight or a pair. Like, what could they possibly have here that I beat? Unless they're just totally way out there, which maybe like I could have gotten it in on the turn, and then my graph would look better adjusted for all in EV, right? But I made a tight fold and folded my ace high against the river bet. So I don't know. If you have opinions on that, flame on. But I folded. That's how it is. Okay. Now we're just gonna have some post flop. Pre-flop questions. Literally the opposite of what I said. All right. So I was thinking I might call this against a button open or a cutoff open. So first, let us verify that assertion. All right. Let's just say versus cutoff. Queen jack double suited. Queen jack 10 deuce. Yeah. So queen jack 10 deuce double suited is call versus cutoff RFI. Call in big blind, right? So that's correct. If I go back and let's look at some other, like against low jack. Can I even call this against a low jack? I think maybe not, but maybe. Yep. Even call this versus low jack RFI. But now let's take a look at a squeeze spot, right? So this is a squeeze spot. I'm going to have probably 3 opponents if I were to call here. So let's look big blind versus cutoff squeeze. That's the closest. That's not exactly what happened, but it's something like that. So queen jack 10 double suited. Actually, I'm supposed to call this. So this was, I was a little over concerned. It's call in big blind versus cutoff squeeze spot. Let's see if it's against low jack too. Maybe this hand is just too powerful because I have 3 very strong cards. I'm going to make a lot of nut straights and like nut straight draws. Yeah, so this is just also call versus low jack squeeze. So fold is too tight. Plays well for 1 bet against anyone. Closing the action anyway. Okay, so I wasn't closing the action. I mean, it's true that this person can call and then they can back raise here, right? But that's unlikely. I don't think that changes it much. We can look at small blind squeeze against cutoff and see, is that any different? Like with this hand, do I, yeah, so this actually in the small blinds, I fold this against cutoff squeeze, like very clearly. And it's basically just 3 better fold with these queen jack suited ones. So I will add that last one, fold in small blind versus cutoff squeeze. And we'll say very clear fold. So that actually tells me maybe closing the action is a really big deal, right? Because the reason we don't want to flat it in the small blind in a similar scenario is because the big blind might come back over the top. We don't have any ace X blockers, and so I think more bad things can happen. So in this spot, I don't hate my fold as much because it wasn't raise, call, call. It was call, raise, call, and then if I call, then this player could put in further action, and it could be a very unpleasant situation. But that was probably a little too tight, a little overzealous in terms of talking about how the suits lose value. And here, you know, it would have been a very difficult hand to play, and we don't really have to worry about that too much. We already looked at that. We're going back the other direction. And then, is this too loose? And if it's not, is ace king 6-3 a fold? Let's check out both of those things that I pondered during the session. Nice, nailed it. Okay, so we will write it down. Ace king 6-4, single suited, good suit is RFI in hijack. Call IP, call 3-bet, IP, fold to 3-bet, out of position, right? So this is a hand where if somebody in position raises us, 3-bets us, we're going to actually let it go. But if one of the blinds 3-bets us, then we get to see a flop. Ace king 6-4 bad suit is fold. Ace king 6-3 good suit is fold. So this one I feel like I nailed, right? Because I looked at this hand and said, I think I can raise this hand. I did raise this hand, but I also thought if I'm suited to the king, or if I have 6-3 instead of 6-4, it's a fold. And so, you know, that's, you know, it's not like, yay, I got it right in terms of just like some validation. It's, yay, I got it right. I'm learning, I'm absorbing information from the matrix. And pretty soon I'm just going to defeat Agent Smith very easily. Okay, so small blind versus the cutoff. We're going to look at these. No, this is the button. I don't know why I said cutoff. King 7-3 suited, or queen 7. Yeah, this is actually a 3-bet fold, right? So this was too tight. Having that suited king is very good, and being against a button is also good. King queen 7, single suited good suit is 3-bet fold from small blind versus button RFI. Bad suit is fold. So if I were suited to the queen, it's a fold. Suited to the king, it's a 3-bet. So this hand was wrong, right? So the good thing here is that I have learned that, and hopefully will internalize that. Sometimes it can take reps, right? And sometimes we want to drill down on a specific spot. So here this would be a fold in the cutoff, right? So king queen 7, good suit is fold, cutoff, small blind versus cutoff RFI. So yeah, we 3-bet a lot more hands against the button than the cutoff because presumably they have a wider range. If for some reason we think the button has a very tight range, then we should actually use a tighter range to 3-bet them with. We should use our 3-betting range against that range, not against that position. The position isn't really what matters. The position is what dictates what they should be doing. But if we know they're not doing what they should be doing, then we want to make adjustments. Adjust accordingly. All right, so I fold. And that's incorrect. We move to the next one. Queens with a 9 and a 6. I fold this one as well. I was planning to open this hand in the cutoff. So let's take a look. Cutoff, queens, single suited with a 9 and a 6. Yep, this is a raise fold. So that's correct. 9-6 single suited is single suited and good suit is RFI fold from cutoff. We're going to then look at what do I do. So this is towards the bottom of the range, but any queens with a jack or a 10 and then suited to the queen, those are all gonna raise. But let's look at, what am I doing here? Cutoff versus hijack, right? To check out our 3-betting range, it's going to be queen, queen. And this is just clearly a fold in this spot. Very clear fold in cutoff versus hijack RFI. So then you could say, yeah, but they're min raising. Okay. So if this were very close in this spot, maybe I 3-bet it or call. Probably call. This is more the type of hand we call. But it's not close, right? Queen, queen, 9, 8 is a fold. So if queen, queen, 9, 8 is a fold, for a min raise, I'm not going to call with queen, queen, 9, 6. I'll probably call with queen, queen, 9, 8, right? That was like barely a fold. Then we'll call this min raise. But against this just isn't even close. So we fold it. It was barely close if they folded, right? So because of that, I think that's an easy one to get rid of. And then this hand I actually raise folded. And that feels borderline to me, right? The raise feels borderline. The fold feels borderline. I feel like it might be a fold. And it might be like just open fold, right? It folds to me. Maybe I fold. I don't think so. And then when they 3-bet, maybe I call. And I think that's a little more likely, but I do have the tri-suit. So let's look it up. Small blind, just the small blind open raise, ace queen, 8-3 is a raise fold, right? So cool. Got that one right. All right, so ace queen, 8-3, single suited, good suit is RFI fold from small blind. All right, so there you have it. That's my session for today. Thanks so much to everybody for hanging out with me for this hour as I played poker and reviewed poker. So if you're on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, you can also subscribe if you have Prime or if you don't, but it's free if you have Prime. Anyway, yeah, have a great rest of the day. Cheers.